So welcome to the Future Print Tech Inside Storytelling webinar. The point of this webinar is really that complex technology I've seen and witnessed has often been communicated in an overly technical way. And when that happens, sometimes we miss the mark with our communication. So what I've done we've done with my collaborators here over the period of the past few weeks is hosted a number of podcasts culminating in this webinar. And the principle is simple, really, in that storytelling is often confused or conflated with promotion. And we think that's missing the point, because storytelling, when done properly, is in a highly effective way to build trust, to inspire people, and really to create a level of an emotional contact with people that perhaps is not done when we just purely fall into promoting features and benefits while not really creating a narrative. And we don't create a relatable basis in which to build a relationship, particularly with people that may be interested in our product or aren't as technically gifted and don't understand what the power of our unique value proposition. So I've assembled a team here, all of which have really good experience and with storytelling and have been successful at it, and each of which produce, I would say, highly technical products that really add a huge amount of value to the power of a digital printing machine, whatever that may be, whether it's an inkjet head, queuing system, or indeed, in Luke's case, a specialist consultancy that helps people solve problems in a technical level. So I'm going to introduce the panel now. So delighted to have all the way from Montreal. So thank you for joining us, Dr. Madhu Kaushik, who is the Vice President and CTO of Vera Inkjet, a business that produces, a specialist business that produces water-based pigment inks for inkjet in a variety of industries. Welcome to the webinar, Madhu.
Thank you, Marcus. Thank you for having me.
No problem. And well, thank you for joining us. And next up, Luke Tanner is Digital Marketing Manager for a business called 42 Technology. And 42 Technology, based near Cambridge, are a specialist consultancy that helps people solve technical problems in a variety of industries and also helps them innovate and create. And Luke, you'll explain a bit more probably far more effectively than me as to what it is you do and how you use storytelling and thought leadership to communicate the unique value proposition of 42 Technology. Next up, we have Charlotte Bales, Head of Marketing of Xaar. Xaar are the largest independent manufacturer of inkjet heads, and they've really led the way, I think, for many, many years in terms of opening up new markets with this innovative technology. But on the way, there's been problems that they've had to solve in terms of communication. So Charlotte's going to help us understand a bit more about Xaar and how you've used.
Thank you.
So thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Next up, Rob Karsten, who is EMEA Regional Director for Excelitas. And I've known Rob many years, and I know that he's one of these people that's a natural storyteller, should I say, in terms of giving talks and so on. Again, with Fosian and Excelitas, it's the products that you've created are highly technical, and often you've had to convince a market to adopt that technology, and you'll explain more about that. And you use storytelling very effectively too. And Dr. Simon Daplyn is Head of Product Marketing for Sunjet, which is a part of Sun Chemical, a very, very big ink producer. And I've known Simon again for many, many years, not just at Sun, but Simon's always been very effective at branding, marketing, and really getting into the storytelling around the value of inks and the importance of inks and how they can open up new possibilities. So welcome all for joining us. And we're going to go straight in to the discussion. What I would like this session really to do is to hear from each one of you, because you've got really interesting case studies, businesses, problems that you've solved with both your technology, but equally with storytelling. And because Madhu's got up earliest out of all of us, and she's in Montreal, I'm going to invite Madhu to kick things off. So Madhu, would you give us a little bit of a background about yourself and also Vera Inkjet, what makes Vera Inkjet unique, but equally and then how you perhaps use storytelling over to get across your, the value of the business, and also how it's helped you solve some communication problems. So over to you, Madhu. The floor is yours.
Perfect. Thank you, Marcus. So before about 5-6 years back, I didn't know anything about print industry. I just finished my PhD in nanomaterials and was prepared to join the world of consulting or drug discovery, because that's what I was doing during my internships and my life before PhD. I was a researcher in a drug discovery setup. And I met Glenn, and he convinced me that print industry is huge. For me, print industry was just papers. That's what I knew. Desktop printers printing on papers. And then I realized it is not. So when I joined Vera Inkjet specializes in water-based pigment ink formulations. So these inks could be used on textiles. More now. People are open to use it for packaging. So this was the area where I was, and I discovered that print industry is enormous, and the science the technology which goes behind it is not just mixing things and with colors and putting it out there. It is complex, and depending on what kind of ink formulations you're making, what kind of print heads you're using, you end up basically using all kind of sciences, from material sciences, nanomaterials, to physics, to acoustics, because you're dealing with print heads, and then fluid dynamics. So I like to call it a scientific cocktail. And Vera Inkjet is actually good at studying this scientific cocktail. We have ink formulators. Of course, there will be ink formulators, but we built Vera Inkjet's research and lab through a non-conventional method. So instead of hiring for our laboratory ink formulators only, we went to the universities and we had PhDs in chemistry, in chemical engineering, who were more often experts in polymer science, nanomaterials, dispersing these complex materials in water, and then train them on inkjet science later, on ink formulations later. And because of that, Vera Inkjet has been able to generate a knowledge base, I would say, on materials and inkjet compatible materials for water-based chemistries and applications. So Vera likes to, of course, we do R&D in pigment inks, and we manufacture some pigment inks for some of our clients. We have excellent manufacturing facilities, but how we define ourselves is we are accelerators in this whole I would say, goal of the print industry to getting more sustainable. We want to play a role. We want to we want to be impactful. We want to be the highest contributors, where major players in this industry are trying to do water-based printing. That's where we come in, and we can accelerate with it our chemistries. Maybe the project is too huge, so we are always open for collaboration. That's what we are, because we are very small, based out of Montreal, 14 people, but very focused, and that makes us mighty. So we are mighty and small.
Yeah, so you're small and mighty. You have this kind of really innovative culture. You're geographically, like a lot of the other people on this call, are kind of in the Cambridge vicinity, where there's a lot of inkjet sort of development and so on. So you've both geographically removed from that. So you've had a geographical challenge, because you've started working with us and you've connected with a whole new market in Europe, and people have very quickly got to understand who you are, what you represent, and on both on a personal and professional level, which is fantastic. So you've really used storytelling effectively, I would say, over the last few months. You've done a number of different podcasts, talks, and so tell us a bit about what it means to you, storytelling, and how you may have used it, and what kind of results perhaps you've achieved.
Mm-hmm. So yes, we have, as I told, we are small, so we don't have a lot of marketing budget, and no one knew about us about 3-4 years back. And that's when we were brainstorming how we can put ourselves forward. And most of our panelists here would agree that we cannot tell people that, oh, we sell inks to this, we did that project, we're under NDAs, it's confidential. So we went ahead and we said, let's tell our story, because storytelling is way more impactful than stating facts and figures, because and using a jargon which half of your audience won't understand, because they are not chemists, they are not chemical engineers, they might be end users, they might be printmakers, they might be printhead makers. So we went ahead and used storytelling. And what I find is storytelling gives you an emotional connection with the audience. The facts and figures won't. And we are all humans. We crave these human connections, right? So everyone has empathy in them. So all these, the industry has big companies, big players, and they might look, from my perspective, where I'm small, they sometimes I get intimidated, like, how am I supposed to even say that I can do this? But then once you tell them your story, the empathy sets in, the emotional connection sets in, and that helps them to understand us and us to understand them. So storytelling is powerful.
Right. And you've kind of developed your story over the period. Obviously, we've been working together, but that goes with any format, does it? So you've given talks, you've done podcasts. It's kind of the same principle, but in a slightly different way each time.
Right. So formats, any format, and because we live in a world where we are dealing with all kind of generations, from people who started their careers when there was not even a desktop computer, to people who are now just do not even write their notes. I still write, but I'm very sure my son, who ends up even having a book, he will start to scroll it rather than flip it. So all these formats are important. We must, and as scientists, sometimes scientists say it's not our responsibility to get this message across. No, it is our responsibility for non-scientist community to make this message across. So even as a broader picture, it's print industry's responsibility to tell people how powerful that print industry is. And they will only understand if it's simple, it's interesting, and it makes them understand it. So, and then it has to be done on all the formats. So it has to be done through written stories, it has to be done through dialogues, it has to be done in a real world. And that's why I really like Future Print, right? Because Future Print has given access to Vera for doing storytelling in every format possible. So we have done together podcasts, we are doing webinars, we also do real world conferences where we network face to face to tell our stories. And all this ends up catering to the whole spectrum of audience and all generations we are dealing with, because each one likes their story in a different format.
Yeah, and the kind of results are that over the period of the sort of, I don't know, 10 months or so, you've raised the visibility, both as yourself as a thought leader, but equally the business, right?
Right. Yes, it's been it sounds easy when we see in the past, but it was a cumbersome journey. It's always difficult to put your story forward in simple terms, and then as I told you, I was intimidated. It was a lot of pressure, and we all feel the pressure of public speaking, right? I don't enjoy public speaking. It makes me nervous. I might not seem to be nervous, but it's worth doing it. It's worth doing it. Where Inkjet gathered a lot of momentum. We were able to come out of the shadows because our business format was to deal with bigger OEMs in the shadows. And it worked well for us. It's just that for packaging, we really wanted to go out into the limelight and say that, ask for collaborations upfront. And when we were doing that, no one knew why would they collaborate with some company in Point Claire in Montreal in Canada. So that's when it was important to tell the story of Vera, that how it was formed, how we are the experts, how we differentiate ourselves from the rest of the mighty R&Ds out there. So that's what we put forward. And I think print industry has been so kind to us, like companies and these big shots from companies where I have only stalked them on LinkedIn, right? And when you meet them in person, they are kind, they are generous, they are very much they will ask you how we can help you, right? So that was a good reception for Vera, and we have achieved a lot of recognition of what we do, so that now I think it would be easier from now on. At least we don't have to convince, we know what we do.
Yeah, brilliant. Well done. And it does take that, doesn't it? It does mean you move out your comfort zone, you put energy into it. It requires time and effort and so on. It isn't as easy as just sending an email to loads of people. It is a bit more than that. So thanks for that, Madhu. That's brilliant. Next up, Luke Tanner, digital marketing manager, heads up marketing for 42 Technology, as well as Vera Inkjet. A really interesting business, but different actually to the rest of the group, really. Luke, give us a bit of a intro to yourself and 42 Technology, and you know how you've built the kind of platform and strategy of storytelling, thought leadership. Over to you.
Sure. Yeah. Hello, everyone. I'll do a quick intro about 42 Technology first. So 42 are a technology and product development consultancy, and we are a group of both specialist and generalist engineers and scientists who help our clients solve technically complex problems, and also help them with consultancy services develop new products and with innovation. This can be broken down into two areas, really. It's product development and the whole innovation piece around that, and then manufacturing innovation as well. So we help manufacturers make their manufacturing lines more efficient and solve problems for them on the line. I started my marketing career working for a digital marketing agency in London, and I was there for a number of years. And we're going to get onto this a bit later on, but I actually was responsible for the execution of the digital campaigns. So this is more around the promotion and the performance of the campaigns. And it was during a time where the digital revolution was in full force. We were working with partners like Google, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn on their paid platforms. And my role was to try and maximize the performance of the creative that was being given to me from our sister agency, who were more around the story, the creative, and the messaging. I then went and worked for a market-leading component manufacturer. I needed to scratch that creative itch that I had in the back of my mind. So I went in-house to a manufacturer where I headed up the marketing team there. And I was starting from scratch. They're a very traditional company. But one thing they did have in their favor was that they were a market leader, and they had been developing and designing this technology, which effectively revolutionized the market. So in terms of performance, efficiency, energy efficiency, which are really key things, they were market leaders. So for me, going in and telling their story was almost the first thing that came to mind. Was, let's not talk necessarily about the specifics of the technology and the complex nature of the technology, but more what the technology can solve for people, the problems that it can solve, or the benefits that it gives people. And a lot of it was about retrofitting this technology into existing products, and therefore there was an immediate return on investment in terms of the efficiency that it could give people. And I've been at 42T now for a little over a year. I was brought in to set up and advance the marketing function as the business grows. So 42T are growing quite quickly at the moment, and they needed the marketing function to help support that. And I joined, there was a very small marketing team, very small marketing function that was really restricted by the amount of resource. So there was only one person doing the marketing then. There's now 5 of us in the team. So in that year, we've had a massive growth in the team. But the idea there was that we wanted to build trust in the marketing function and be able to set up our core channels, first of all, so that we could start building a community to be able to tell our story to, and then also develop a content machine and some key stories to then feed those channels. So really the way that we tell stories, as you can imagine, we have clients coming to us who have got problems that need solving. And one of the core things about storytelling is trying to evoke emotion. So we don't want to talk to people about necessarily the technology. You know, when we're doing the projects, we go very deep into the technology and things like that. But at the very start, we're trying to identify opportunities to then pass on to our sales team. So for us, it's about identifying problems within the market and providing solutions that are easy for people to follow, and tell the story as to why I work with a consultancy like 42T and the benefits that we can bring their projects. So quite a lot of our storytelling is around some using use cases as some of the problems that we've solved within that market, or getting people to understand about the benefits a consultancy like 42T can bring to their internal team. It's not about replacing their internal team, it's about adding value to their internal team. And some of the businesses that we try and promote and tell our story to don't understand and haven't worked with consultancies before, so that's a key part of that message. And for those that do, it's then about building trust within 42T that we are the right people for the job. So
yeah. And obviously what you're doing there is you are building a, like you say, a content machine and a platform and so on. And you know, Madhu alluded to it as well. And so, well, and I've experience of this obviously as well, is that NDAs are a kind of a understandable fact of life with evolving technologies, but also they're a hindrance, aren't they, in terms of being able to kind of flag up case studies. But you view and do use thought leadership as a kind of a method for that. So one of the things you do is a report, isn't it? You know, so tell us a bit about thought leadership and how that works.
Sure. Yeah, let me tackle the first one. So the NDA side of things, you know, a lot of our clients, whether they are big multinational companies or small startups, have got problems. You know, there's no two ways about it. Problems with efficiency within their manufacturing lines, or problems within developing products that are actually going to differentiate them from their competitors. And they don't always have the internal expertise to be able to solve those problems on their own. One thing a lot of them have in common is they don't want to shout about their problems, because, you know, who wants to talk about their problems in that way? They also don't want to talk about the fact that they've worked with consultancies to solve their problems, because then it doesn't build trust within their brand. So that is a major challenge for us. And a big part of our business is under NDA, you know, product development pieces, because we don't want, you know, the technology or the concept leaking into the market. It's there, we've developed this technology for someone, and therefore it's going to give them the opportunity to gain market share. So we don't want that going out. But there are a number of examples where clients are happy to talk about the work that they've done with 42T, because it's a great story and people care about it. And it could be that you know, a manufacturing line, they want to make it more efficient, and part of their strategy is net zero, and this is a big step towards that, and they're happy to promote that because it's part of their story of getting to net zero. And working with a consultancy to do that obviously makes sense, and we're able to add value in that. Same with product development as well. We're trying to build 42T as this badge of honor that people can wear and say, wow, we've worked with a specialist to design this, and this is the technology we've got out of it. And that's the reason you should trust it even more, is because it's got this specialist touch to it. So that's one way we're trying to get around the NDA piece, is just by building extra trust within the market and that specialist area. In terms of some of the big things that we've been working on, so you mentioned the trend report that we put out. The trend report was really a big branding exercise for us. I joined the team and immediately saw that we have got these specialist experts who are really passionate about what they do. And they work cross-sector. So for us, we work in a number of different industries. So we didn't want to make this trend report sector specific. We wanted to look at some of the big mega trends that are happening across the world, and try and put our spin on where they're going and how they can be used within these areas. So they're called our insight teams, and they provide insights within specialist areas. And their role within the business is to be specialists in those particular areas. So whether it's sustainability or digitalization or smart systems, we call it, or innovation, these groups are set up, and it's their job to go out and learn as much as they can about these specialist areas, go out and present to other people about these specialist areas, create content, and they also work on the project work as well. So they're there as those technical experts within that. And I really wanted, I just saw the opportunity there that we've got all these experts, you know, let's sit them down, ask them the right questions, try and get out what the big trends that they're seeing, because they're going out and doing all the work for me. It's really just about getting that down on paper and then promoting that to the outside world and demonstrating our expertise. Obviously, we're a consultancy and we sell consultancy services, but if we can give away a bit of free consultancy, a bit of free advice, it's going to help build trust and help tell our story as to what areas we're interested in and how we can help people.
Yeah, and that achieves ability. It stimulates thought, doesn't it? But then equally, you can generate data, you can generate leads, and like you say, build your community. So it's really effective. And thank you for that, Lou. That's cool. And obviously, by the way, after we've introduced each person, we'll then have a bit of a chat at the end in terms of other thoughts and ideas. And I've got a couple of questions. Anyway, next up, thank you, Luke. Next up, we have Charlotte is head of marketing at Xaar, and over her time at Xaar, I think it's turned Xaar into a really leading kind of brand that does things differently. The presentation of Xaar now is very
different. Yeah,
to how it was when I first got to know Xaar.
yeah.
So you've actually gone from a very sciencey looking business to much more of a consumer business, but you've used to looking business and a brand, and that and you've used lots of different techniques really effectively, I think, in terms of brand, but also storytelling to kind of overcome some of the challenges. So why don't you give us a bit of a background on yourself and also how you've more recently used storytelling and branding?
Yeah, so my backstory is that I think I fell into Inkjet. So I took a job at Lynx Printing Technologies for about 3 months, and that turned into 7 years. So when I first found out about Lynx and the job, I didn't really know anything about really printing per se or inkjet or anything like that. And I grew to love it. And then my time there came to an end. I wanted a career progression, and so I was looking around, and the job at Xaar came up, and it was pretty much my plum job. So I was lucky enough to have secured that, and roll forward 15 years nearly, so which I can't quite believe. And it's a very varied role. So we're quite a small team, but we cover pretty much everything from internal communications to working on the PLC side, the messaging with the CFO and the PLC team, to all the product marketing, communications around products and product launches and things like that. So it's an awful lot, but it keeps the job very interesting and very varied, and it certainly it keeps me very busy. So, but it's good. Nice challenge, and nice to be in that position. So for anyone that doesn't know, Xaar is a printhead manufacturer, but actually really before that we're an innovator in inkjet. So we've been around for about 32 years, I think. We came out of some work that was done at Cambridge Consultants, and company was born out from that when people left Cambridge Consultants to set up Xaar. And there are a number of inkjet companies, I mean, everyone probably knows this, around the Cambridge area that sort of really formed around the same time and in the same way. And we just are in the technology side. We've always been very proud of our innovation. Very proud, so manufacturing is really the endpoint of the innovation. I think the challenge is, from a marketing perspective, is there are many, but really it's because it's very technical. And I think if I go back to my days at Lynx Printing Technologies, and I thought I knew an awful lot about inkjet and loved doing what I was doing, and my mind was blown when I moved to Xaar, and I just couldn't believe that this world of inkjet printing was so complicated. And so I think I'm still learning even today how to about the different bits of the technology and how to break that down into something that's easy for people to understand. But yeah, the challenges are it's very technical. And because we're effectively a component inside a big print system, you can't really point at something and say, look, that's what it does. So it's how do you communicate that story, and how do you make it relevant, relatable? And I think, Marcus, you highlighted the rebrand, and I think really from my perspective that's when we really started storytelling. That was the point. And we rebranded for a specific reason, in that we needed to really reset where the company was. We needed to leave behind the past, but also have a nod to it. So our heritage in inkjet innovation is really important to us, but we needed to build trust. That's been mentioned a few times, and so the storytelling was really important for that. And we used a really visual element, so it was a video when we rebranded, which was very emotional. Again, that kind of links to what Madhu was saying about having an emotional connection with your audience is really important. And so, you know, it's very much based around all our employees, but also our journey, where we'd come from, but also very much forward looking, you know, what was the story going to be in the future. So that was really important. And I think we've really continued storytelling since then, and we've used it, as I said, that was rebranding. We've used it for a product launch. The last big product launch was our Aquinox aqueous printhead, which I think was probably the most successful product launch we've had to date. And again, you know, we used a lot of powerful imagery to tell the story, music on the video, obviously a video, but we used different mediums. So from articles and features and adverts, and, you know, but all the story was about the same thing, you know. And again, it sort of links back to what other people have said. You know, we had you know, it was, what problem do we solve? So it was very much about keeping the customer at the center of the story that we were trying to tell. So that was really important. And then the other one, which Marcus, you and I know very well because we worked on it together, which was our Open Day and our Seeing is Believing event, which we did last year. And that was really about a technology, which is our ultra high viscosity technology, and the challenge that we were trying to overcome. And we're still telling the story now, almost a year later, is that a number of people really didn't believe what we were saying, because traditionally Inkjet is known as having certain parameters in capability around printing highly viscous fluids, or not being able to do that. And there we were saying, actually, we can do this. And, you know, everyone was, you know, you need to show us, we don't really believe it. And so that's where we kind of came up with the Seeing is Believing. And we used the Open Day to tell quite a simple story, really, which is, what's the problem? You know, what is it that is, you know, what's the current perception around Inkjet? What we say, you know, what we're saying we can do, with the research to back it up. So we had someone there with some independent research, and then actually showing people this is what it looks like, and a whole day of doing that. And now we are, since then, we've been telling that story. We've been continuing to tell that story, adding to it. You know, that's really important, you know, when new research and new capabilities and new applications come along. So we've added to it along the way. And what we were doing at Drupal was part of that. We worked with partners, so, you know, them working with our particularly fluid manufacturers to bring them into the story, and they're telling their part of the story. So it's been kind of multifaceted. And I just want to give you, so I think, you know, I just dug out some metrics from some of the stuff that we've done, just to give people a bit of a kind of some facts around how effective this storytelling can be. So since 2020, so since we started using storytelling, our LinkedIn followers have gone up by 46%. So we've added 4,500 people to our LinkedIn page. The unique visits to that page is up by over 54%. We more than doubled the leads coming into the company. We increased our nurture pool significantly. That's people who we talk to. The Seeing, I'm just reading the stats, the Seeing is Believing event, we had an 8.2% engagement rate, which is way above what the LinkedIn benchmark is. And we had a 46% increase in that month in visitors to our LinkedIn page. So, you know, they're just the headline stats, but, you know, for us, it's been absolutely significant, you know, just changing the way that we do things. So, yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you for that. Those results. And I know, obviously, them collaborating on Futureprint, we had thousands, 1,000 people opening emails.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Looking at film that we did, listening to podcasts.
Yeah.
And so it was the event itself, but it was all the activity around the event.
Lots. Yeah.
That just requires effort and time and thought, but impact is massive. So thanks for that, Charlotte. So both the rebrand and the Seeing Believing, both really good examples of how the impact of storytelling is huge, isn't it? Or potentially.
Yeah, it has been for us. Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Rob,
Hi.
Welcome. And Rob, tell us a bit, Rob Karsten, so runs Excelitas, and obviously you've been involved in the technology for printing for many years. Tell us about the specific type and then the challenge that you've had in terms of communicating something new for the industry, and then how it's been successful and how storytelling's worked for you.
Well, thanks, Marcus. Well, for us, it all started over 20 years ago, back in 2002, when we were a startup. And we had this crazy idea that you could replace all this mercury-based, high temperature, high energy consuming arc lamp technology with LEDs. And so the challenge we had was to take an entire industry and move it from one very well established technology from the lighting perspective, but also very established from the chemistry perspective, and try and change it over to using a completely different technology when each needed a completely different chemistry. And that's a huge challenge when you're only 3 or 4 people to start with. And so we had to develop a narrative that really kind of engaged people. And I think timing's everything, right, as well. So it's super important. So you've always got to kind of be reactive, responsive, understand your market. But for us as well, we came up with this idea pretty much at the same time when Inkjet was really just starting to take off and becoming a very popular technology. And it became apparent in the Inkjet technology that things like pinning and full cure and heat management and compact size and the ability to turn things on and off very quickly were important. So we developed a narrative around that. And sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. I mean, initially, our idea was we were going to focus on the CD and the DVD printing market, right? Because that was going to be where it was at. But of course, we hadn't factored in something called streaming. that strategy literally disappeared overnight. But thank God the rest of the inkjet industry really took off, and we were able to really build a base in that industry. And for us, what was really interesting is, and the biggest challenge for us to get all that change to happen, is you need people who want to adapt change. And the good thing about the inkjet industry was it's a nascent new industry that was embracing change. So they were ready to change the chemistry, they were ready to change the equipment, and they wanted people like us. And we worked very closely with them, with the chemistry companies, with the inkjet companies, to develop a story where we were really responsive and coming up with ideas and working with them and listening to what they were telling us. And you know, we talked about this the other day, but I think storytelling is a two-way thing. So it's also a lot about listening and developing your story from listening to what people are telling you and identifying where the issues are, how we address them, where we add value, and developing a narrative around that. And I think it was that early on that really helped build the foundations that really grew the company. So developing that story, which worked, which was really telling our focus, our customer base, where we wanted to be with how our technology helped them do what they wanted to do, how it was going to give them better equipment, which was going to give their customers better experiences, which means they'd buy more equipment. So, and it was understanding that, I think, that really helped us sell what we were doing. So we weren't just trying to say, here, this is what we do. We're saying, this is how your customers are going to benefit. This is how your machines are going to benefit. This is how it's going to make everything better for what you're doing. And it was so that involves a lot of very detailed analysis, really good understanding of the markets, the products, the applications, and the end uses to really develop a compelling story. So I think that's kind of where initially we built our success on. And then over time, as things have changed, our LED systems have grown and developed, and the markets have moved and developed, and we've begun to embrace new technologies. So we've seen webinars. I mean, we were probably one of the first people when the pandemic hit to join FuturePrint, because we recognized immediately that there needed to be a new channel into the industry, and we needed to keep our dialogue going. But how were we going to do that? There were going to be no trade shows. We couldn't visit anyone. And then, you and Fraser came up with the future print idea, and we were straight onto that. So we've been very adaptable, we've been very flexible, and we've continued to adapt and develop our narrative. And now we're starting to have, over the last couple of years, we've been doing a lot of on-site filming with our customers and getting them to, in effect, tell our story. And so we go to companies. There's some really brilliant YouTube videos where we're with our customers and we've done all the filming, we've paid for everything, but they're doing all the narrative and they're discussing all the benefits and where they've really, their experience of working with us, their experience of using our technology, and how that has been really, a good experience for them. So I think that's interesting, where we're starting to embrace the new technologies, and but they're not so new anymore, I guess. It's just me being old. But
it's sort of age and way of thinking, I think. I think what you've said, a couple of things there, I think are really good and important. Understanding what it is your customer wants from your product. You then tell the story that resonates with them. There's been loads of examples. I mean, why sell shampoo to somebody with hair like me, or why sell lawnmowers to people that live in apartments? So it's a so what thing. So it's really important, isn't it? Understanding the
but there's a balance to be had, isn't there? Because also you just don't want to tell people what they want to hear, right? Because then it's like an echo chamber, right? You've got to have there's got to be some substance to what you're telling people. Because if you're just repeating what they want to hear, then, then that doesn't get you anywhere.
It's taking it one step further on. And also say the case study for the other thing you mentioned, and I think this is a really important point. Never has it been so accessible, the different platforms. Link doesn't cost anything. Listening to podcasts doesn't cost anything. Stuff on YouTube doesn't cost anything for the viewer. It costs time and effort for the person to produce, but actually to load it up, it doesn't. So it really is a phenomenal opportunity, yet so many people just don't exploit it. And so I find that a little frustrating, but equally on the opportunities there, the channels are there, and so on. It just requires it requires just doing it. And I would, we'll come on to advice later, so I'll anyway, so thanks so much for that, Rob. And very patient, Dr. Simon Daplyn. We've discovered is a Tottenham fan. And Simon, as well as a Tottenham fan, you have been involved with Inkjet for many, many years in terms of developing the technology, working on new markets with Inkjet, and also rebranding companies. And then now you're at Sun. So you've got a really sort of interesting, both the technical and also marketing kind of viewpoint of things. Give us your take on storytelling, a bit about you and what you do at Sun.
Hi, Marcus, and thanks. No, it's been really interesting listening to the other experiences, because I think there's a lot of there's a thread that will run through most of what I will say that links to what everyone else has said, which I guess is a good thing. Yeah, like Madhu, I'm a chemist by trade. Unlike her, I didn't necessarily fall into this. I've been stuck since university in the Inkjet world, and part of what we've been doing is selling the technology of Inkjet to start with. But I really started in the labs, and when I first kind of noticed the benefits of storytelling, it was quite interesting, because I went to a startup for my first job, but then I ended up at Xenia, which was kind of like a technology consultancy in a way. We did contract R&D for people. And it was very technically focused, a huge number of PhD people, big chemistry team, big engineering team, probably similar to Luke's business in terms of trying to solve problems for people on the hardware side, software side. And we became good at storytelling through the mistakes that we made early on, because one of the things that often, especially from a chemistry side, we did was kind of try to blind people a bit with the science and show how clever we were, used all the jargon, all the buzzwords, and tried to show everybody that we knew more than them, and that's why they should work with us, because like we were the experts. And it's like people say don't let the facts get in the way of a good story, which is clearly not a way to approach our business, because the facts are critically important. But if you just have the facts, we would talk on a level with very high level scientific departments within big, massive brands, and you could see them glaze over pretty quickly with us trying to just bombard them with facts and jargon and statistics. And it became very apparent when you wanted to do more business with these companies. What was important was relationship and trust. And I know that's a theme that's come through, but people don't necessarily buy the technology. They buy the people that they're buying it from, and what that person or company is kind of willing to do with them. And so that's really where the storytelling for me started. And then obviously I moved out of a technical role into a more commercial role, and now kind of product management and marketing, which allows me to focus more on the storytelling and bring the rest of the business on that journey in a way. And that's an exciting way to kind of develop how we approach customers. But I think all of us would agree that we're not just telling stories for the sake of telling stories, right? They're considered stories. They're not just trying to sell a yarn to try and do a small bit of business. It's about developing long-term relationship and strategy. So it's still it's based on the core fundamentals of marketing, you know, in terms of product, price, promotion, and place, and doing the right things first, understanding your customer, who your buyer is, what their buying journey might be, looking at how we target them, how we position our products within the competition, because there's a lot of it out there, and all of our competitors are extremely competent and very good. So it becomes less about the technology and more about the other benefits that we can bring. And good examples within Sun are, I mean, Sun Chemical is a massive business, but the digital business within that's pretty small, and the team is pretty small. So one of our massive challenges, by the way, is actually selling our technology within our own company so that people understand it and are able to sell it to their existing base of analog customers. But alongside that, it's about having let's say a small business mindset on a global scale, and being able to tell the story of, okay, you've got problems with regulatory in different countries. Well, we've got a team that can help you with that. We can help you with your labeling, and then selling our global reach in terms of service and support, and things like being able to manufacture on different continents. And without us being able to tell stories through certain platforms like video testimonials, conference presentations, okay, sometimes exhibitions, but more on the digital platform now. We recently secured business with an OEM that was a current customer, but was looking potentially for an alternative supplier. And they didn't know that we had the ability to service their needs in different countries. So for their US customers, we could manufacture the same product that we were manufacturing in Europe under exactly the same conditions in the US for them, to allow them shorter lead times with their customers, faster response, minimizing their carbon footprint in terms of shipments and logistics and how much they needed to stock on site and stuff like that. So things that were completely unrelated with the technology part, us telling stories through various platforms enabled them to see that we were capable of delivering something that had a big value for their business over and above what the product does and what it means in a specific application. And without the ability to tell that story or make it about the capability, not just the technology, but how we can help and what we're able to do in partnership with some of our customers, that became a key part of how we won that piece of business and how we continue to do that.
And the point you've made there, which is a really important one, is we all assume wrongly, don't we, that people understand what we're about. They don't spend the time to do the research necessary, and if they come across something that's a very sort of dry website, or they're just not going to find it. And I think the point being, buyers now, B2B buyers, buying has changed. So much more research. We saw it as Drupal. The massive drop in numbers was not because the Drupal organizing team did the wrong thing. It's because we don't speculatively attend trade shows just for a sort of vague shopping kind of expedition. Buying and research is not so much of it's done online. And if you've got your story journey or your buyer journey up there, stories, whether it's, like I said, all the different formats, everybody listens to things different. Some people like listening to stuff, some people like watching, some people like reading. You got to have the content ready for them. And that's an example of where your customer, who you presumably have a dialogue with, found something that they didn't know about. And if that hadn't happened, you may have lost the business, right?
Exactly. And it's about covering platforms and knowing who your customers are or where you attract them. So we did a piece of research this was when I was at Sensient, looking at how we rebranded and what it meant and what channels we needed. And the business was very against having a Twitter channel. It was very against having an Instagram channel because it didn't fit with what they believed were the values of the business. But what those channels enabled us to do was talk to the operators of machines and the people, like the younger staff, the people that were coming up through the industry. The LinkedIn channel or going to conferences or seeing people at exhibitions tended to be higher level people, the business owners or the managers. But it's important that you're telling the story to your customers across the board, so that you need buy-in from the guy that's going to operate the machine. You need buy-in from the guy that's putting the components together that are within the OEM. So we're not just talking to the CEO of our customers. We need to talk all the way through the organization and tell them the same story in a consistent way, but through a different channel and tuned for that channel. And that's why the approach across multi-platforms makes so much sense now, because yes, conferences still are important. Yes, exhibitions and face-to-face contact is important, but getting the information and the capability message across to everyone through a customer organization is also critically important. And if there's no budget for them to travel to these events, well, why not create some short piece videos for them to see, or they can listen to a podcast, or they can read a short article, or look at some pictures on Instagram and maybe click through and understand more about how they were created. And that becomes a critical part of how we're telling our story now.
Yeah, and that also chimes with the research in that larger groups of people are now involved with buying decisions, partly because of I would imagine, the spread of risk and so on. So decisions are being more forensically analysed. So you need to have a story for everybody, not just a singular one that you may have thought in the past. And also we found with our virtual events, because Google enables you to measure the age group and dynamics and demographics of people that attend, and obviously look at our website now, it means that you reach a more diverse group of people. So that chimes with what you're saying. So just asking a question for anyone really that wants to, out of all of you, might want to kind of point to maybe other examples of how storytelling has had either a big impact for you or for a brand story that you may know of, that you think, well, actually storytelling enabled this. Any thoughts, anyone?
Yeah, I mean, just picking up on something that Simon mentioned just sparked an idea in my head. So I think Simon, when he first introduced himself, was talking about the mistakes that he made, and in the early stages of presenting as a technology consultancy and talking about the technology and how smart they are. And there's a real easy trap to fall into, and that's, people think marketing is about talking about themselves and, okay, we do this, we do that. Look at our website, look at all the great stuff we do, look at all the great stuff we produce. When really now, I think the message is, aligning with the sales team to talk more about the client, when you're talking to people, make it relatable. So, this is your objective, or these are the problems you're having, or these are the trends that you're seeing in your market, and taking them on that journey. And, so many good marketing stories or sales decks now start about setting the scene within a specific market industry, or looking at the trends. These are the big things that are happening, or even the small things that are happening. These are the changes that are occurring for you as a person, rather than talking about, oh, we can help you with this. And then later on in the story, you do talk about yourself. Obviously, you need to build trust and credibility and things like that. But it's a really easy trap to fall into, is just to talk about yourself early on, and people switch off and don't relate.
Yeah,
Mhm.
totally agree. Absolutely. I think that was one of the switches that we've made is to turn it around. So one of the things, well, the first thing that we always do when we're working on a launch or a whatever story we want to tell is we'll have our message pillars and which are the themes, but the themes are always about what can someone, what are they going to get? How are they, how do they benefit? Not what we can give them, but it's what they can get or what they can do better or, what problem they can solve that they've got. And then beneath that is what our technology will do to address that. But yeah, I absolutely 100% believe that's the best way.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think we've kind of gone that way as well with the YouTube videos that we've done at our customers where we've done installs and they've talked about where they've benefited and what the good things that they've had out of using our technology and talking about the experiences working with us, which is great because it's somebody else from a third party, unbiased, and giving their point of view, which I agree, that really helps establish trust within a company. It's like we're stuck in a machine somewhere. Nobody sees what we do, right?
No,
Right.
absolutely. I
Very
think
close to each other.
that's basically it, recognizing it's a buyer-led journey, right? Not a sort of old school way of buying,
Yes.
but it was definitely sales-led. It isn't like that anymore. It's buyer-led. So it's not even a subtle difference, is it? It's quite a significant one.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think making sure that your marketing team and your sales team are aligned throughout the whole process. People talk about the marketing funnel and the sales funnel and the buyer journey or the customer journey all the way through, but getting true alignment means that sales and marketing, the sales team can influence from top to bottom and the marketing team can influence from top to bottom, and aligning on that is really, really important. And one of the issues we've had to come at 42T is that because it was quite a small marketing function before, but quite a big, consultancy business development function, and the team and the company's grown with that, was that actually sales team far outweigh the marketing team, and they're far much more advanced in their practices than we are. So we have to align with them, build trust within the internal team, and then go out and deliver this message for each one of those business developers and consultants that are looking to bring in work. So yeah, that was a key thing that we needed to overcome.
And just sort of like, as we're rounding off the hour, really, any of you would like to proffer any advice, anything you've learned, or you think, I mean, obviously we've been doing that anyway, but any sort of like words of wisdom to give to anybody that was either in the middle of their journey or the start of their storytelling, or what advice might you provide? Anyone got any thoughts?
I'd say get to know your audience. I think, so when you're particularly early on in your career as a marketer, is really understand the audience and even go and see what they do, go and learn from them. I think that I very early on, I think when I was in my last job, I went and did lots of factory visits actually, and I learned a huge amount just by doing that and understanding and seeing firsthand what their pain points were. So it enabled me to to improve my marketing by understanding what they did. But you can only really do that, I think, by getting to know your customers and going and seeing what they do and talking to them.
There's still a lot of value in face-to-face contact.
Yeah, definitely.
And we can use all these online media and everything to enhance what we're doing, but you can't totally get rid of meeting people, being face-to-face, and the touchy-feely bit, right?
Oh, and you said it earlier, Rob. You said listening.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Listening's
people open up more when you're together, right? And that's true. But
also, Marcus, developing your story over time and talking to people with input, right? So we all come from technology businesses and backgrounds, apart from Luke, and Luke will probably agree that one of the best things I did was get a fantastic creative agency.
Yes.
Talk to them about what I wanted to do and have their input, talk to customers, but talk to your internal kind of sales team, customer service reps, really understand what their story is or how they're part of the story. And then working with those guys to really map out what it is that is your point of difference or how you can build your value proposition. And for sure, when I did the rebrand work at Sensient, there's no way it would have been as coherent or as crisp a story that we were able to tell in the end without a lot of input from an external support, because we had a team of one doing the marketing, right? So I couldn't create a story on my own. You have to do that in many cases, and not being afraid to kind of tell someone about the core principles or the brand purpose, what you're trying to achieve as a business. And there's many extremely good agencies out there that will help you craft the story over time. And it may start as one thing and develop into something completely different over time. But that's what all stories do, right? Everybody's heard someone tell the same story, and it kind of evolves over time until the one that really resonates with people.
Yeah, and your rebrand, or the Sensium rebrand, is a good example. Really effective. And what happened? Sensium were acquired by Sun, so obviously that had quite a good result there. Madhu, any thoughts that? Thanks, Simon. Any thoughts, advice?
Oh, no, I'm just digesting what I just listened from Charlotte, from Simon and Rob and Luke. Just to add, when we do storytelling, and how do we differentiate it from marketing, right? Marketing is a bigger, how I look as marketing is a bigger umbrella under which one of the streams is storytelling. You can market your product by storytelling. So it's a subset of marketing. But marketing is very scientific. You can get into facts and figures. Storytelling is an art. And we are all scientists and we like facts and figures, but we should not ever forget that storytelling is an art. So sometimes you might not give all your facts when you are trying to give your first story out there, which is not a problem, because once you give your story, and if someone wants to dig deeper, they can have a one-on-one meeting with you. It's when you're talking to your larger audience, you must just keep the story simple, like all Disney stories, right? It starts with a problem. There is some big problem and someone solves it. And at the end, everyone is happy. So your story should have those elements of Disney story. And essentially the facts and figures I usually keep. And it's a trap, like everyone said, right? It's a trap when you want to show that you are an expert of your field, and then you get into facts and figures and more sciencey terms. We should not fall into those. Just keep it like a Disney story. And then if someone is really interested, they will gonna have a one-on-one meeting with you where you can have your facts and figures. Also, like Simon said, it's not only important to talk to CEOs and CTOs because we think they are the decision makers, but they are actually not. Being a CTO, I have no power. My company decides themselves and it's the people who are printing, people who are using the ink, people who are using the print heads, they have more power than the CTOs and CEOs. And it's easy to tell your story to CTO and CEOs because they are in the state, their perspective is really same as yours, right? It's more difficult when you are trying to tell your story to someone who has not the same perspective or same understanding. And so we should always cater to those. And with any channels like Insta, Twitter, LinkedIn, I think the lines of professional and not professional have blurred these days. So you have to always tread slowly and carefully because it might lead to some major communication mistakes. But yes, I have seen some of my clients follow me on Insta, and my Insta was not supposed to be a professional image, or I didn't want to connect, but I did. But the lines are getting blurry and we have to tread slowly. But as long as we keep it true, simple, and not really dissect it, and remember it's an art and it's not in science. That's my advice.
Fantastic. Thank you very much indeed. And Luke, final thoughts before we clock off, because we're over time now, but give us your final word of wisdom.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about storytelling and the emotion around that. And I think sometimes people don't know what problems they have. You know, you can go through life with lots of problems and not really understand that you've got those problems. So talking to people about problems that they don't know they had and then providing solutions with that can definitely help. But also talking to people about problems that they have, you know, because people are happy to live with problems for a long time, not realizing there's a solution out there or a quick fix, and how good does it feel once that problem's gone. So yeah, I think trying to identify that and talk to people on a level where, you know, you can provide those solutions for that really helps.
Fantastic. Well, listen, thank you all for joining us. It's been really, really fantastic hour or so. Really interesting, useful, honest, actually, and insights and case studies about how storytelling can impact what you need to do in terms of. I guess my final bit of advice is if you haven't started, just start.
Mhm.
That's like anything. Once you start moving forward, momentum and so on, you'll it will come together, won't it? And it can be incredibly collaborative, impactful, and dare I say it, fun.
Definitely fun.
And it's a growth thing. So listen, it's all about journey, and the hero's journey is exactly that. Madhu just said it's about Disney. It does follow that. The people relate to storytelling because storytelling really is life. We're all on a journey, aren't we? And we, as human beings, we relate to that. And so it's I'll leave that one with you. So thanks again for joining us. Thank you all for joining and being so brilliant. And looking forward to seeing you all in the future. So thanks again.
Thank you, Marcus.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.